This is the RFID Talks. I'm here in São Paulo. It's Wednesday, 9 p.m. And you, Claire?
And I'm joining you from Washington State in the U.S. So I am still early. It's about 5:15 here.
And you, Mark?
I am joining from Hong Kong, and it is Thursday morning at 8:15 a.m. So I'm just drinking my coffee and enjoying my breakfast.
Oh, good. I had just had my dinner, and the discussion today is how AI is impacting RFID or vice versa. And I have a book here I'm going to show you. This book here that I'm reading for the fourth time, not just because I was not able to understand the first time, but because it has a lot of things that are very scary about AI. Elon Musk said something last year around March, 1 year ago, saying that we should have some way to help people that will be unemployed. And this book says when we become 9 billion humans in the world, probably 5 billion will be unusable people. Unuseful or what? Unused people. So this is very scary, and what I really don't like much the idea of the AI. This is my opinion. This is something that I never said before when I was just a technology reporter or editor. This time, now at this time, I really feel that AI is something that will change things more than expected and probably will affect people all over the world in a way that we never saw before. So this is not just another step of the technology evolution, but for me, or reading Yuval Noah Harari, or even listening to what Elon Musk or other guys are saying, this is scary, and this is something that I really don't think in a positive way. I really think that we have to change lots of things in the world to make it happen without hurting much our people or our civilization. So I don't know what you think about it, but the way it is connecting to RFID is something that we can see right now. And I was reading something that Claire wrote some months or some weeks ago, right, Claire? You wrote something
A
about
few
that?
weeks ago, I wrote a story about AI. That's right.
Yeah, and I have here, with the help of my assistant Maria, and she is going to tell what a part, just part of what Claire wrote, and what about Mark wrote 4 years ago in January 2020, and it was the end of the text. The conclusion was something like this.
Artificial intelligence might catch on in 2020, but only in a small portion of a company's decision-making.
Did you hear that?
We did.
It was Mark's quote, and now we are going to listen to what Claire said last month.
Artificial intelligence and RFID are becoming increasingly codependent as AI enhances the data RFID provides its users, while RFID feeds AI with the data it needs to train itself.
This is kind of AI too. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that we can get into sort of the futuristic issues of AI a little later in this, but I actually wrote my first story about AI and RFID in 2002. I believe it might have been 2003, but it was very early on. I was invited to SAP's user conference called Sapphire, and it was down in Florida at the time, and they showed a demonstration of using RFID, and they didn't really call it AI. It was algorithms, which is mostly what AI is, that would make decisions based on information provided by RFID, and they basically showed how, for example, if a complex supply chain operation lost a pallet because a forklift truck backed up into the pallet and the goods were all damaged, the store that was going to get that pallet would no longer be able to get it because it was damaged. And this software that they had created would reconfigure the supply chain and decide, okay, well, we can take a pallet from this store and move it to that store, or we can take parts of pallets from different stores and ship them to this. And what's the best decision that can be made using AI? And the value of that, and interestingly, SAP never pursued this. They never productized it. They just kind of let it die on the vine. But the idea was, if you're a manager, you can't process all of the information about the supply chain and make the best decision. You can make simple decisions like, yeah, we'll take this from here and we'll throw that there. But if a computer can look at thousands and thousands and thousands of permutations, millions of permutations, and decide this is the one that's best, most efficient, most cost effective, and then you can act on that. So I do think that there's a great marriage between RFID and AI, as Claire said. Taking all that information that RFID provides about what's happening in your factory or in your store or in your warehouse, and processing that and enabling decisions to be made most effectively and most efficiently. I think it's a great marriage and can do a great deal for companies.
Good.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, I guess expanding on. Oh, yeah, Mark, finish.
No, go ahead. Good.
Well, I was just going to expand on what you're saying. I mean, you've been doing this. If you were writing about this subject in 2002, I guess you were just a kid in school, but you got it done. So be good for you. Since then, 20 years later, 22 years later, I'm looking at AI, and, as a journalist in trade journalism, you talk to marketing people from companies, and they're trying to promote a solution or a product. And so they always want to, they want to give you something that's in, the best light, that's innovative and new and exciting. And the term AI comes up again and again. And AI, as we all know, is synonymous both with, as you said, Edson, some scariness, some excitement. And, I guess when I started that story, it was, what in reality is it actually doing for RFID? And then, exactly what you're talking about, Mark. It's the sort of things that people have said in the past. They can do this. They can analyze data and learn all kinds of things about how the products are moving, ways that they can make their supply chain more sustainable, where the manufacturing sites more sustainable or efficient, et cetera, et cetera. With AI now, of course, it's easier, right? It's you can set up an AI system. Not only is it all pulled together for you, but it's continuing to make decisions for you, as opposed to somebody having to still look at the the numbers that have been crunched. So, I do think it's pretty early. It's really early, I think, for RFID industry. Most people talk about AI. They love to use the phrase AI, but I don't think many of them are comfortably using it yet. But the promise is pretty astronomical. You can't ignore it. It's going to be meaningful. But I guess the thing that really struck me when I started talking to people is that it's not so much, I mean, there's that side to it. The AI can do a lot with the data you're collecting from RFID, but it's also that RFID is collecting data for AI that AI desperately needs. AI doesn't do a thing if you just plug it in and it sits there. It's not intelligent by itself. So, up to now, it's been collecting data from the internet, from us, from humans. It needs data, and RFID obviously just produces tons and tons of data from all of these tags. So that's where I started talking about interdependence, because AI desperately needs something like RFID. It's where it's another source of data that will make it stronger, I guess.
Absolutely. I think Claire makes a good point about, everybody talking about AI. A couple of years ago, I went to NRF, and just about every single booth in the entire convention center said, we're selling an AI product. And I came back and I wrote an opinion piece for RFID Journal, and the headline was Artificial Intelligence. And I think, given the hype now and the way technology companies work and the way they raise money is, they jump on the latest trend. Everybody's interested in AI. So I think that, companies that are purchasing software to work with their RFID system or any system, frankly, have to be cautious and skeptical about what's under the hood and what actually is AI and what isn't. And there are different flavors, right? Because of the launch of ChatGPT, we're all talking about large language models, and that's what's really kind of lit the world on fire because of the ability to chat with these things and they respond like humans. But that's not the only AI technology out there. Most of this is algorithm based, and there are other programs that are not large language models, but still, could be considered AI. And so companies need to, I think, be a little bit skeptical before they dive headfirst into this technology.
I remember when we went to an event here in Brazil, in São Paulo, you and me, Mark, and we were discussing about IoT and Internet of Things, and the guys were selling lots of software, saying this is AI. This is IoT,
Yeah,
and it wasn't. So we were discussing in the background that we were going to show people what was the real IoT, because IoT means that you have things that talk to the systems without a person, without having someone to interact with the systems and the thing itself. So we got there and we started talking, and I remember that a guy from IBM was very angry with us because we presented something that was not the thing he was going to show, because he had the analytics and we had the idea of getting information from the real world and putting it inside the computers automatically. So computers were able to know what was going on in the real world, and then analytics comes after that. And
yeah.
I think now probably is the same thing, and computers must learn. And I was reading what Claire wrote, and it was she did a feature story, so she had the opportunity to talk with lots of people, lots of executives and people that have idea on this on the subject. So what I felt is that more and more people are thinking about machine learning, and this is AI for now. I don't know if it goes further than that. What do you think about this, guys?
Well, again, there are lots of different flavors, and large language models are designed to gather in a ton of information and generate responses. And one of the things we've seen is that they make up responses. And I think that that AI, like RFID and like all other technologies, will go through a hype cycle. So right now, everybody is, AI is going to change the world. And then, when they start using it or start looking at it real closely, they'll find out that, maybe it doesn't live up to the hype. So for example, I heard, I believe I was listening to the radio, and I believe it was an executive from a large hotel chain like a Hyatt or one of those. And the woman was saying, we looked at AI or these large language models for customer service. And it sounds like a great application, right? You call up and you say, I want to change my reservation. And, the AI technology says, okay, and can interact with you like a human and sounds very human and responds and changes your reservation. But she said, it's possible for the system to say something perhaps that's offensive, or to get something wrong, or to do something unexpected, and they just can't take that chance. They looked at it and said, even if there's a 0.1% chance that the system screws it up, we can't deploy something like that because we're handling so many calls a day, and we don't want to have that mess on our hands. So I do think this is going to go through some of the hype cycle. I think some of the older machine learning technologies, some of the algorithm-based technologies, are a little more proven and can work well for an RFID system. But it remains to be seen how easy it's going to be to plug all this RFID data into a system and get a good response out. I mean, what if ChatGPT says, okay, that pallet that was damaged, we want you to reroute one from the store in Plano, Texas. And you say to yourself, well, we don't have a store in Plano, Texas. What do you do then? So I do think there's going to be a bit of a hype cycle, and people are going to find that it might not be as ready for business applications. At least the large language models might not be as ready for business applications as we think.
And Claire?
Yeah, I agree. I think the hype cycle is guaranteed to be, well, we're in it. We're in it now. I think we're going to see more of that as people actually say, all right, I am going to start deploying an AI system to do exactly what Mark's describing, and to start making decisions for me about my shipments and my throughput, my receiving or my handling. It's going to go wrong. Things are going to go wrong without a doubt. However, AI will prevail. I have no doubt. It's serious. It obviously provides benefits. It's going to be there. And I may be getting a little bit beyond my knowledge of AI, but I'm going to go here anyway. RFID data is pretty straightforward when you compare it to some of the things that AI systems are trying to manage. So, an RFID tag by itself, just understanding where a specific item is and when, that's really still at its core. And that data is simple enough, I think, that an AI system can really do amazing things with that, especially when we're talking about volume. And that's what RFID is about, right? Is volumes of data that covers answers some very specific questions, right? So I was talking to the RAIN Alliance today, and they were talking about their results that just came out, where they were saying last year there were 44 billion chips were shipped last year for UHF RFID. That was just last year. So, when you think about okay, there's 8 billion people that are feeding data into the internet, and, that's being used by AI. But you think of the volume of all these tags, and they're just saying, I'm chip 1, 2, 3, and I'm here. and now I'm here, and now I'm here. I mean, it's really, I think for AI, that's super exciting what they could do with that kind of information, that volume of information that should be, and again, correct me if either of you think I'm wrong on this, but I think that if you compare that to some of the things that AI is doing in other industries, it seems to me a really good model for success in the long term, maybe not immediately.
Yeah, well, again, I would separate out the large language models, which were designed to, gather all this information on the internet and process it and spit back out answers. And I used ChatGPT and I asked it some questions about RFID and I asked specifically about HF systems, and I got answers that were related to UHF. So it's bad. I mean, the quality of what you're getting out of those large language models is not very good. And the more specific you get in terms of being like, if you ask it a general question about, the political system of the United States, there's a lot on the internet and you can get pretty good answers. RFID is not so good. So, for example, if you ask Dolly, I think has now been incorporated into ChatGPT, but I asked it, what does a UHF RFID reader look like, and what you got was just a complete mess because it was too specific for that. But I do agree with what you're saying. There are neural network systems. And I'm thinking of one in particular that was developed by a company that was purchased by Google. And they developed a chess program called AlphaZero. And the way most chess games work is they tell the computer the rules of chess, right? How the pieces move. And then they tell them the value of the pieces. So a pawn is worth 1, a bishop's worth 3, a queen is worth 9, and a rook is worth 5, right? And then they play games and they learn. With AlphaZero, what they did was and again, this is a neural network, and they said, okay, these are the rules of the game, go play. And the goal of the game is to capture the king, get the king in checkmate, right? And they didn't tell it anything about strategy. They didn't tell it anything about the value of pieces. They just said, go play. And the computer played millions and millions and millions of games and learned how to play, learned the value of the pieces on its own, and can beat any grandmaster on earth right now. It's the best chess engine available. And that is exactly like a supply chain, right? You have all these moving pieces, all these different parts. They have set ways they're allowed to move. There's set things you can do with them. And this computer could figure out what to do. That is an ideal solution for a company for using all that RFID data. We have all this information. How do we come up with the best move? And the computer is better at that than humans. I mean, this AlphaZero system is better than the best chess master alive right now, simply because it can look at lots of. So the other thing about the old models was they just crunched a lot of different moves. So they would say, okay, let's look at if we move the rook first. Let's look if we move this pawn. Let's look if we move that pawn. And they would just run through millions. And AlphaZero doesn't work that way. So it's much more strategic in the way it plays the game, much more like a chess master would play, but still can crunch more information than a chess master and winds up being better at it. So I do think that you're right. Forget about the large language models. Forget about the mistakes that it makes. This system doesn't move the rook in a way that rooks don't move. It just doesn't. It's very rigid. It knows what it's doing, and it's perfect for a supply chain application or a store inventory application, and could really be transformative. I think one of the questions that we're going to have to see is any RFID company capable of delivering that kind of solution. In my experience, most of the RFID companies are either 100% hardware focused or 100% software focused, and not 100% solution focused, where they give you both. So I think if somebody can come up with an RFID supply chain application where they install the readers, give you the tags, and add the software, that company is going to dominate the market, and we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. You were talking about chess, and I like chess a lot, and I'm always following Stockfish and AlphaZero. They are always playing together. They are the two robots, the two best robots in the world. The first player, the human player in the world, the best one is Magnus Carlsen, and he has 2,800 points in his rate, and the computers have 3,800. And to be, 3,800, 1,000 more. And
Yeah.
see, to become a chess master, you must have 2.5 thousand. So 2,500.
25,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2,500
2,500, rating of 2,500.
points in rate. So this is incredible what's going on. So this is the thing that really makes me scared about what artificial intelligence can do. And but what I see is what you are talking about. You try to ask ChatGPT about UHF and RFID, and this is very difficult. I tried that too, but last year when I asked ChatGPT about IOP, Internet of Packaging, you know what? It went to my website and took all the information from there. So there was
Taking your
nothing new.
information.
Yeah. So it's repeated information. No, everything. There's nothing new. Not yet, probably. But what I see is that it's becoming probably will be better in some years to develop software or to develop solutions in RFID using the artificial intelligence. I don't know what did you hear about that, Claire?
Yeah,
Well,
it is coming. But I'm just going to say, when I first heard about ChatGPT, what was it, a few years back when they first were talking about it, and my son was visiting for Christmas or something, and he went into the system and said, explain RFID technology to me and its security threats, but do it in the language of a pirate. And you know what? It nailed it. And I'm just going to say this. There's lots of cases where you can say, no, they got that wrong. It nailed it. It used pirate slurs, and it described RFID. And frankly, some of that language probably came straight from me. And you too, Mark, and you too, Edson, because we've been writing about this, and ChatGPT is pulling all our data, all our information, all of our words, and regenerating it as a story explaining RFID in pirate language. So
in a drunk way.
It's pretty
drunk.
Yeah. So I know AI is going to change everybody's lives, RFID industry for sure. I do expect there's going to be some stories about AI going terribly wrong with an RFID system. I know it's going to happen because that's how technology evolves. That's how we, try it and eventually establish it. Will I be covering stories about that? I certainly would think so. But I also think, as we were saying, I guess that it's going to be significant in the long term, maybe not in the short term.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that the systems will, continue to evolve in a way that um, they get smarter and smarter and smarter. I do believe that the systems will get better at certain tasks. Like, for example, there was a famous example where they've been trying to decipher this protein and how it folds, and AI was able to do it people had been working on it for years and couldn't solve it, and then AI did it in like a couple of hours. And I've read a bunch of stories where they're feeding medical information in, and AI is determining that someone may have cancer when the doctors are looking at the same information and don't see it, and the computer's actually right. But with the large language models, they don't really fully understand how they work. And so, how do they fix that if you don't really know, what it's doing and why it's doing it? And you don't fully understand its capability. One famous example was they asked a program to book a flight for it, and the program itself wasn't able to. It didn't have the authority to make transactions online. So it called a travel broker and pretended to be a person and asked the travel broker to book the travel for it. Now, the people who made the program didn't know that it would do that, or it could do that, or it would figure out how to do that. But if you don't know that, then how do you know how to fix, the things that are potentially wrong with it? I'm just not sure. The progression is quite as linear as it seems. I mean, we've seen this big jump. The other thing I would say about technology is that the technology that gets hyped the most is the one that's the easiest for people to interact with. When the internet came out, people would go online, they would get their Netscape browser, and they would see the internet, and they got all excited about it. One of the problems with RFID is the average person, even investors, they can't just log on somewhere and see it. They can't. You can go to ChatGPT site, you can type in, write a story for me in quintuplets or whatever, and it does it, and you're amazed, right? You can't go into a website and type in, track everything in my home and tell me exactly where my socks are. I mean, if you could, everybody would be, ecstatic about RFID, and we would have seen it take off way faster than it did. But it's kind of removed from the average person being able to interact with it and see how powerful it is. So I think there's a tremendous amount of hype. Obviously, this technology is super important and is going to play a huge role in how companies do business going forward. But I do think that there's a lot of hype, and we're going to run into some roadblocks that I think are going to take some time to figure out.
Guys, I think we are at the end of our time. So it was a pleasure again to have you and to talk to you. And this is great. I believe this opportunity of the RFID Talks is opening a new world for lots of people that are following us. So this is very interesting, and I thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Red. Yeah, I'm looking forward
to more reporting from Claire on this.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hoping to keep at it. We've got more to write about. There's always more.
It's going to be exciting.
Guys, thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon for you, Claire.
That's right. Yes. Everybody enjoy wherever you are in your day. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our next talk.
Okay.
Yes. I hope to see you in less than 1 month.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.